Have you ever been in love?
Sir, we're talking up the butt. A cigarette is in order.
Your friend is gorgeous.
I never pick up guys on the street unless they're very cute.
Carrie Bradshaw, the New York fashion icon, the dating columnist, the queen of complicated relationships. She's been called a TV trailblazer, an icon for modern women, and the blueprint for every female-led NYC show that followed. But what if I told you she wasn't exactly an original creation? Because before Carrie was sipping Cosmos and writing about Mr. Big, Khadijah James was a writer. Regine Hunter was serving high fashion and dating rich men. And Maxine Shaw was already a man-eater years earlier. So, was Sex and the City just an HBO-fied remix of Living Single? Let's break it all down. The premise, 2 shows, 1 concept. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Because if you strip away the glossy HBO budget, the Cosmopolitans, and the Manolo Blahnik shoe obsession, Sex and the City and Living Single are essentially playing in the same sandbox. 4 women living in NYC, navigating love, careers, and friendship. A mix of bold personalities, some high maintenance, some no nonsense. A central character who writes about life in the city. And here's where things get interesting. Living Single did it first. Sex and the City got the credit. But let's really break this down, because the parallels are undeniable. A show about women in NYC in the 90s? Groundbreaking. Before Living Single, female-driven ensemble shows weren't exactly Hollywood's top priority. Most big sitcoms were male-centered. Seinfeld, Frasier, Cheers, Friends, which aired 1 year after Living Single, and we'll get to that later, was co-ed, but still male-driven. So when Living Single dropped in 1993, it wasn't just another sitcom, it was a game changer. A show about 4 women living, thriving, and succeeding in NYC? Unheard of. A show where the women weren't side characters, but the whole story? Revolutionary. And not only did Living Single create the blueprint, it worked. It was a ratings hit, consistently ranking high on Fox. Fans loved it. The humor was fresh, the dynamics were real, and the characters felt authentic. It was a proof of concept. A show about women, friendship, and city life could be a huge success. So why did HBO roll out Sex and the City just a few years later with the exact same premise? Except this time, with an all-white cast? Coincidences happen. But when the entire friend group lineup feels like a rebranded remix, it's worth taking a closer look. Khadijah James versus Carrie Bradshaw, the career-driven, opinionated leader of the friend group. Khadijah ran her own magazine. Carrie wrote 1 column a week and somehow lived in a rent-controlled brownstone. Now let's take Regine Hunter versus Carrie Bradshaw, fashion and drama edition. The style-obsessed, serial dater with a flair for the dramatic. Regine only dated rich men and refused to be caught in discount clothing. Carrie spent tens of thousands on shoes she couldn't afford and built an entire personality around it. What about Maxine Shaw versus Samantha Jones? The bold, confident, no-filter woman who doesn't apologize for her lifestyle. Max was a sharp-tongued lawyer who had 0 time for nonsense. Samantha was a PR queen who had 0 shame about her sex life. Sinclair James versus Charlotte York, the sweet, hopeless romantic who wants true love. Sinclair was bubbly, goofy, and believed in fairy tales. Charlotte was prim, proper, and believed in traditional fairy tales. Do you see what we're seeing? It's not just a vague similarity. The archetypes line up almost perfectly. HBO packaged Sex and the City as groundbreaking, while Living Single was barely acknowledged. Yeah, it's giving copy-paste, but make it HBO. Now let's be fair. Sex and the City had its own vibe. It was raunchier, it was hyper-glamorous, and it leaned way harder into the brunch, shoes, and dating fantasy. But let's call it what it is. Without Living Single, there's no proof of concept that a women-led NYC show could work. Without Khadijah, would HBO have greenlit a show about a writer narrating her city life? Without Regine, would Carrie have become the luxury-obsessed, messy dating queen we know? Without Maxine, would Samantha have been so fearless? And yet, one show gets documentaries, reboots, and endless nostalgia. The other barely gets mentioned in TV history. All right, let's put this in perspective. 1993, Living Single premieres on Fox. bringing us the original NYC-based, career-driven, ride-or-die friend group. It's fresh, it's successful, and it's redefining what a sitcom can be. 1994, NBC debuts Friends, a show with a remarkably similar setup, but with an all-white cast and way more marketing dollars behind it. January 1998, Living Single ends after 5 seasons, not because of poor ratings, but because Fox didn't prioritize it the way networks prioritized shows like Friends. June 1998, just 6 months later, HBO premieres Sex and the City. 6 months later. Now, let's really think about this. A show about 4 independent, stylish, career-focused women living in NYC ends, and almost immediately, a new show about 4 independent, stylish, career-focused women in NYC emerges on a bigger platform with a bigger budget. Coincidence? Or classic Hollywood repackaging? Here's what makes this even more frustrating. Living Single wasn't just successful, it was one of the highest-rated sitcoms on Fox. It consistently outperformed Friends in its first season, proving there was an audience for this kind of show. But unlike Sex and the City, Living Single never got huge billboard campaigns across NYC, non-stop magazine covers positioning it as revolutionary, a massive marketing budget that told the world, you need to watch this. Instead of getting its flowers, Living Single was quietly phased out. Then, boom, a newer, whiter, more HBO-fied version pops up almost immediately after. And the wildest part? Sex and the City ran for 6 seasons, got 2 blockbuster movies, a spin-off, a reboot, and is still getting love today. Meanwhile, Living Single, the show that proved this concept worked, was left out of the conversation entirely. So tell me, was this just perfect timing, or did Hollywood pull another sneaky rebrand? But wait, because this gets even messier when we talk about who really deserves the credit. All right, so let's call it what it is. Living Single walked so Sex and the City could strut through Manhattan in designer heels. One show got the blueprint, the other got the billboards. And the real tea? One of them is still fighting for the recognition it deserves. Here's what we know for sure. Living Single proved that a show about smart, ambitious, funny women in New York works. Sex and the City took that formula, rebranded it for HBO, and became a media empire. But one was strategically amplified, while the other was quietly erased from the conversation. Sex and the City got global syndication, award wins, movies, and reboots. Living Single had to fight just to be remembered. And that's the real issue. Because Living Single didn't just inspire future shows, it shaped the very concept of what we now expect from female-led sitcoms. Yet when people talk about the most iconic female friendship shows, somehow, Living Single isn't at the top of the list. That's why this conversation matters. It's not just about whether Sex and the City took inspiration, it's about why one show was prioritized while the other was pushed aside. Is it possible to pick a side? Both shows gave us something special. Both shows deserve their flowers. But if we're talking about who did it first, that crown belongs to Living Single. So now we're passing the mic to you. Was this just a coincidence? Or do we need to have a serious conversation about how Hollywood handles Black-led shows? Does Living Single deserve more credit in the pop culture history books? Sound off in the comments, because this debate is far from over. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more pop culture deep dives.